Hello, my name is Juwan, and I'm here to talk to you today about Chapter 5 in our textbook, which is Born in Blood and Fire, which is post-colonial blues. Post-colonial blues didn't happen until after independence, and this is where liberal ideas and just colonial traditions played a part and came together. With this being said, it also goes in depth about the lack of economics and infrastructural support that was available in terms of transportation and capital. So it came to a point where things didn't go the way that they should have gone because they didn't quite have the resources to make it happen, to bring it all together. During this chapter also is where Claudios were introduced as well, which is like a higher power. The Claudios are known for being wealthy. They use wealth to control armies and things of that nature, and also they were known to have like large supplies of land and things like that. So they use their money, their power, their wealth to kind of control things. But the problem is they just couldn't do it by themselves. During this chapter as well, there was a lot of liberal devastation, and for one, the country was already kind of in a tight spot from previous wars. Going back into the previous chapter, where back in the 18th century, one of the previous wars actually put Spain in bankruptcy. So capital was very limited. During this chapter as well, it was discussed where they were trying to keep people in their place, like keep the poor poor, keep the people that were at the top of the chain at the top of the chain. So there was really not much change when it came to like a hierarchy, and the way that it was formatted at the top of the triangle. A few people that stood out in this chapter to me, a few names were Juan Manuel de Rosa. He was a rancher from cattle fields. Kind of use violence against opponents and things like that to kind of earn his spot and earn his name, as I would say. He also made war on indigenous communities to open land for ranching as well. Antonio Lopez was another name. He was a Mexican caudillo as well. He actually helped overthrow a turbide as well. So a few of the names that that stood out during this chapter to me as well. Then as we look into different the different countries and their different directions, we'll talk a little bit about Brazil as well. Brazil maintained their colonial institutions. The army was loyal to an emperor. Coffee made them revenue as well, so they were able to kind of make capital. In the daily life, for most people, they didn't change during this process or during this challenge. Like I said, most people stayed in place. They really fought for future equality, like throughout this whole chapter. That was the biggest thing, just fighting for future equality. And even when it came to women, just trying to get the equal rights for women, because prostitution definitely was huge as well. It was a lot about just infrastructural and struggles and things like that, that kind of show what were the aftermath after gaining independence. So to sum it up, here we focused on, the liberal ideas in the colonial tradition, life after independence, some of the sacrifices and struggles that stood after independence, as far as the lack of economic and manufacturer infrastructure when it came to transportations, and things like that. Only a few different countries had different ways of actually making money. As we know, Brazil, they had coffee. Coffee is what made them revenue, so they were able to kind of, stay afloat, so to speak, with getting revenue in by their coffee. But not everyone had that ability to do so. So full total equality was definitely important. The liberal ideas and the colonial traditions came a mix. Life after independence, just some of the devastation that came with it as well. And also just the pointing out the Claudios, letting us know exactly who they were, what position they played. As I said, they were kind of like a higher party. They normally used their wealth to control the armies and things like that. They normally had a lot of land as well. So they were in a good position, to kind of control the army and make it work for them, especially during war and things like that. And honestly, the war to independence destroyed the economy. Honestly, the wars before the fight to independence had already led the economy into a bad direction. And it often led to, higher taxes as well. We learned when we're talking about the chapter of independence, where everything that went on during that war led them to raise, taxes and have tighter control on the colonies. So in this period, it actually made it a little difficult for people to actually pay taxes. I mean, it kind of go hand in hand. It makes sense because if they raise them and they're already struggling, to make ends meet, and then you raise the taxes, it's only making it even harder. And they really didn't even have the means of resources to even make it possible. In fact, if they didn't have the transportation that's needed to transport goods, honestly, they could only keep a smaller amount of quantity on hand. So they had to watch the amount of quantity that they had. So they couldn't just go stock up on all this stuff, even if they would have had all the capital to get it, because they wouldn't really have the transportation to get it, the supply, and get it quick, get it transported as quickly as they would like, I should say. So a lot of information. I try to, sum it up and point out some of the big ideas and things that stood out to me. I'm just going through my slides, making sure that I talked about a lot of the biggest things. And also, I want to talk a little bit about Brazil, because Brazil was looked at as being stable. Once I said that they had the coffee that bringing them revenue, and they were known to be stable. The army was loyal. No. And once again, the daily life remained the same for many people. Nothing really changed, especially in indigenous communities and things like that. And landowners had, held the most power. All right, that's all I have for you during my presentation and during this chapter. Obviously, there's much more, but I just wanted to try to sum it up as much as I possibly could to at least point out some of the main ideas. Hope you have a great day. Thank you.